Okay, so again, thank you guys for joining us once again this week on graphic design month. Um, and this Friday, again, today we're going to be talking about vectors. But before we get into Vector.com, which is a free online service similar to Adobe Illustrator. I don't know if you guys have used Adobe Illustrator before. I can't see the chat right now, so I don't know what you're writing. But if you have, it's going to be the similar concept. But maybe a lot of people don't have the ability to get Illustrator because it is a program that you have to pay for. So what we found was the alternative to that, and it's called Vector.com, but without the O, right? So it's VECTR.com.
So
But
we have a
before,
question. One of the
yes, sir.
questions I think from Noah is, what is a vector? I think
Ah,
Jaden's
great
had a
question.
good definition last week.
Jaden, you want to answer that, or because that's one of the
Yes.
terminologies that I'm going to go through that right now.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So Noah, I will get to that question in a minute. Just let's go on with the terminology and some careers before we begin, so that you understand. So this is a basic terminology for color theory. If any of you out there are painters, such as myself, you use this color terminology a lot when you're painting, but also when you are a graphic designer. It's very important to know your color theory. So
Also
analogous.
for social media too. If you were social media posts, yeah.
Yep, for your social media posts as well. So here we have analogous group is a group of 3 colors that are right next to each other. We know that that's the orange, the yellow, and the green. So those are analogous. And we have the complementary color, which are it's opposite from one color is opposite on the other side, right? So for example, what's one famous popular holiday that we usually celebrate in December? That's Christmas. So in Christmas, what colors are complementary? Red and green, right? So if you guys are typing in there, please let me know, Hector or Jaden, because I can't see the chat.
Yep, we're checking out the chat. They haven't typed anything yet, though.
Okay, great. And of course, monochrome colors, it's pretty much just like changing the tone and the hue of one single hue, right? So it goes from dark to lightest. But this is a very simple, like, there's so much more that goes into color theory, that if you're really interested in this, and if you yourself are an artist or want to become an artist, this is a theory that you must learn about. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so continuing kind of with that color theory, we have CMYK. Now, when you are designing on Illustrator, but in this case, we're going to be using Vector. Let's say you already designed. Usually when you're going to print something, you want to make sure that you set up the format before you start designing into the CMYK printing mode. Why? Because if you notice here, every time you use CMYK, these are for letterheads, for business cards or brochures, anything that's going to be printed out and you're going to be able to hold physically has to use CMYK. CMYK is a subtractive color mode. So what that means, every time there's a color added, it gets darker and it subtracts. Okay? Now we have RGB mode. RGB stands red, green, blue. So if you are going to be designing for something that's going to live online on the web, like an app or a website, then you want to make sure that you are designing in RGB mode, right? And then we have Pantone colors. Pantone itself is actually a company that they pretty much set the color trends. So if you're a fashion designer, fashion designers go ahead and look at Pantone to kind of guide them as to what the color trends are for that season. So each season will have different colors depending on what Pantone, this one company, sets out. But again, when you are designing either an Illustrator or on Photoshop, you want to make sure that you have the correct Pantone color, because these are universal colors, right? So let's continue next. So Noah, remember you were asking what is a vector? Well, a vector, let's read here. These are composed of paths. A path can be a line, a square, a triangle, any curvy shape. So basically anything that's solid. If you notice, it's very solid. It could be resized and scaled at any size without losing any quality. The quality meaning like the resolution, right? That you could stretch it out and it won't look blurry. So that's pretty much what a vector is. That's what graphic designers work with the most, especially when you see like logos or billboards that have certain designs on them. Those are usually vectors because they're able to hold their I lost the word. They're able to hold their quality, right? So let's move on to pixels. When we are talking about working with photos, you're talking about pixels, because photos are created by these tiny little pixels. Now, the more clear a high resolution a picture is, that means it has more pixels per square inch, right? If you notice here, Mario, I love Mario, you could still see him, you could tell that that's Mario, but if you notice, these squares are a little big, right? I'm not sure how many pixels per inch there is, but it's pretty blurry. I bet you if those pixels were a lot smaller and we had maybe 300 pixels per square inch, then it would be a lot more sharper, a lot more clear, and it would look sort of like this, right? So that's the difference between a vector and a picture. A vector will be composed of lines, squares, and triangles, versus a picture that's composed out of pixels. Now, gradient is also a term that it's used a lot when you're designing in graphic design for like Illustrator, or in this case, Vector.com. And you'll use it for like to create like the background, or maybe to add it to your text. So this pretty much is a gradual change of color, right? You could see that it goes from aqua to blue to purple. Noah, does that answer your question? Awesome.
He said yes.
Awesome. So when we're also talking about when you're building these elements, you're designing with these elements on Illustrator or Vector, you're going to run into these two words that are very common. It's called stroke and fill. So a stroke is basically the outline of an object, whereas the fill is the inside of the object. Here you could see only fill only, stroke only, and then when you have both together, right? This little element right here that you see, this is very common to see in Illustrator, and it's telling us that your fill and your outline, your stroke, are both active. Here it's telling me that there's no fill, but there is an outline. And here it's telling me the opposite, right? And last but not least, there's alignment. Basically, it's a design principle that this refers to lining up your text or your graphics. So when you are designing, you want to make sure that all your elements are nicely aligned and they look aesthetically pleasing to the eye. What does that mean? That they look nice, they look pretty, they look aligned, and they look cohesive. They work well together, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about careers in graphic design. So there's many fields. Like this is a very small list compared to all the other things you could actually do when you get yourself a graphic design career, right? So first, obviously, graphic designer. What do graphic designers do? They create visual concepts, they do drawing, and they use computer software like Illustrator, Photoshop, Vector.com to pretty much communicate these ideas, right? And to be able to come up with these concepts, these artistic concepts like advertisements and brochures and magazines. So anytime you look at a magazine, you know that a designer did that. They did that. So you got to be able to, graphic designers work a lot with magazines. And that's what every time you see it in a magazine or even a book, you're going to know that that's graphic designer who designed it.
We have
Now,
a
what's a
question.
yes, sir.
Someone asked, is CGI included in as a graphic designer, as a career of a graphic
So
designer?
CGI is actually more related to animation. That's more like special effects. So that's a whole other category in itself.
Which we could probably talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but thank you. That's a great question. Whoever asked that, good question. So now going back into our web graphic designer, that's exactly what it is. They solely focus on creating designs for layouts of websites. So if you see Facebook, somebody designed that whole entire layout. Whatever website that you go and visit, a web graphic designer was the one who designed that, right? And then you have logo designers. So your logo designers solely focus on making logos. So you see the logo here for Miami-Dade Public Library System. Somebody designed this logo, and that was a graphic designer. Now, let's continue. Creative director. So this is the person in a company who will oversee everything. So if they are working on a specific project, like a specific art project or with a client, they're the ones that pretty much oversee everybody. So they talk to the designers, they talk to the artists, they talk to the production team, they go over everything. But these creative directors can start as graphic designers and gradually work their way up to becoming a creative director. Now, the art director, similar to the creative director, but it would be, if you had to put them in some sort of like place, like hierarchy, it would be the creative director and then the art director. And these two people will work with each other all the time. So the art director is responsible for all of the arts that goes under, whether it be an ad or a media campaign. So they pretty much coordinate with each other, right? And of course, there's so many other careers out there involving graphic design that you guys, if you guys are interested, please go ahead and you could either ask us for more information or you could simply go and Google it online and you're going to be able to find way more information. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And my coworker, Jaden, he's going to go ahead and lead you into Vector.com and show you a couple of new tricks and tips. Okay, Jaden?
All right, awesome. Thank you for that, Dinah. I'll take it from here. Just give me a second.
You know, one thing I was thinking about as you were talking, Dinah, is how graphic designers are involved in movies.
Yeah.
That's very important. And you know, whether it's like adding graphics to the film itself or like on the advertising, the marketing side.
Right.
Like
That's right.
advertising. Very
Yep.
Yeah, like designing movie posters. That's part of it as well for promotional stuff.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the video game covers, the cover art for the video games. That's also something they do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, now that we've talked to you guys about careers in graphic design, let's jump right into Vector and show you some little tips and tricks. So when you go to vector.com, remember to spell it without the E at the end. You have two options. You can either click Use Online, which allows you to play around with it if you're just kind of looking to experiment, or if you want to create an account, it's free to do. You can log in and you'll be able to save your projects. For the purpose of just showing you guys the layout, I'm just going to use online just to give you guys a little tour of the workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. All right. So whenever you have a new file in vector.com, the first thing I want to turn your attention to is pages. So your pages individually are pretty much your project files. So think of it as if you had a sketchbook and each page in your sketchbook is a new drawing that you're working on. So right now we're on page 1. If you ever wanted to create a new page, all the way here down at the bottom, there's a button that says Add Page. Notice how below that, here you have these pixels. You can choose the page size settings, the width and the height down here. And if you wanted a specific template, if you click on Custom Size, here you have a couple of pre-made options. So let's say you wanted to make like a YouTube thumbnail or a cover photo for your Facebook page, or you wanted to make it the specific size of like your computer screen or maybe an iPhone background. Here you have these preset sizes, or you can custom make your own. So I'm going to show you guys an example. If I just click Add Page, you'll notice the second page appears right here. And if you ever want to delete the page, you just click this little X button on the bottom right corner to delete it. Now, let's say you had a project saved in here and you want to make a copy of it. So maybe you can play around with the copy and not mess with the original. There's these two little overlapping squares here that says duplicate. So if you click that, that's to make a copy of the current page that you're on. Now the next thing is layers. So if you guys have ever played around with Photoshop or Illustrator, or you're familiar with these drawing applications, you might have heard of the term layers before, especially if you guys went to our animation webinars. We talked a little bit about layers. So the whole purpose of that is that we keep different parts of your project separate so you can edit some parts of it without it affecting the rest. So let's say you had a logo and you wanted to change the color of the background of the logo, but you don't want it to affect the text. You would have the text on one layer and the shape on another, just to keep them separate. Now in Vector, the layers automatically generate themselves whenever you click on a new tool to use. So I'm going to show you an example. If I click on rectangle and I make a rectangle, you'll notice that now there's a layer here that shows up. So every time you create a shape or do anything with these tools, it's going to automatically create its own layer. So I'll demonstrate again with another shape. I click and drag it to make the shape. And if you don't want it to get all warped like this, a little trick is that you can hold down the Shift button on your keyboard, and that'll kind of snap it to stay the perfect size. So you get like a perfect square. So notice how on this layer, I have the brown rectangle, and on this layer, I have the purple square. Our next tool is the pen tool. So this is the main tool that's used in vectors. You see this little blue circle here? This is going to be your starting point. So anywhere you click, I'm just going to click right here. When I drag the cursor around, you're going to see a preview of the line that it's going to make. So I just want a straight line. I'm going to click here, and you're going to notice it's going to create that line. If you want to keep going, you can just keep clicking and creating these points until you have a shape. In order to close the shape, you're going to go back and click on the same circle you started with, and that's going to close it and create your shape. If you double click inside the shape, you'll see these other little circles show up on the insides of these points. If you double click on the outside point, you'll see this appear. So this little red bar converts the point into a curve, and you can toggle this to change the shape of it, and even drag this around. So these are the ways that you can manipulate a shape once you've made it. You can pretty much edit it and create these into points, curves, and twist it and turn it however you like. Our next tool is the pencil tool. So the pencil tool is the one that you use for drawing in general. There you go. So you'll see you can scribble and do whatever drawing you like. However, every line that you make with the pencil tool becomes its own object. So notice how this created another layer as well. So every time you want to draw with the pencil, as soon as you lift the pencil off the page, you have to click on the pencil tool again to continue drawing. I know that can be a little tedious, but just keep in mind that's how the pen pencil tool works on Vector. And of course, if you want to delete anything, just click on the object. So it has this little, what we call the transform tool, this box around it, and you can just hit delete on your keyboard. Next, we have text. So when we have our text tool, I'm going to click anywhere on my canvas, and it's going to make the text appear. Click on the text again. Let me try that one more time. Click on the text again to type whatever you'd like. Now, since I'm on the text layer, you'll notice that all of this pops up on the left-hand side when you have your text. Here's where you can go a little bit further and edit what you've written. Here you can change the color of your text. So let's say I want to make it blue. This little slider right here will change the color of it, and then this little circle will change the shade of that color. So it's either going to be lighter over here or darker over here. So I want like a dark blue. Drag this over here. Good with that. Then here where it says pixel, this is going to be the size of the font. So you can make your letters bigger. And then next to that, you have your different fonts. There's a lot of fonts to choose from in Vector, which is pretty awesome. For it being a free open source application, you have a lot of choices here. It's pretty cool. And then I'm gonna let Hector go more into detail. He's gonna show you guys what else you can do, because these controls with the color, the shadow, and inset shadow, you're gonna have these options for pretty much any object that you work on for your logo. Next, we have the upload image tab, which is this little cloud with the up arrow. So let's say you already have a picture that you'd like to use, and you want to upload it and use it as your background or as part of your logo. You can simply click upload image, and then you would look for your destination on the desktop or your downloads, wherever it is. And then you can click on the image that you want to import, select it and hit open, and it'll bring it into your canvas. And then lastly, we have more shapes. So here, there's a few little pre-made icons that Vector provides for you. You can use these as part of your logo if you'd like. Some of them are pretty generic, like this little mail one might be an icon that means like email, or maybe this little home icon could mean your address. You can use these maybe if you're trying to make a cool graphic for a resume, or maybe a header for your website. But in order to use one of these icons, you have to click on the one you would like to use. It's going to make the window disappear, and then you click one more time anywhere on the canvas where you want to place it, and it'll make it appear. And then once again, you have this transform tool around the edges where you can either drag it and make it bigger, or you can simply move it around on your canvas. So that's pretty much the general gist of your basic tools in Vector, and a little explanation about pages and layers and the differences between them. So now that you guys have become a little bit familiar with the workspace, I'm going to hand it over to Hector, and he's going to show you guys how to create your first logo by showing a little demonstration.
All right, and then let me show a little demonstration. This is a little keynote, and I'm going to be talking about the logo design and some of the tips and recommendations as to logo design. Actually, let me exit out of this. Let me minimize the screen. There we go. Much better now. So as you can see, when you look at these logos, you can quickly identify them. That's one thing that you want to make sure that you do when you create a logo. You want to make sure that it's as simple. Most of these logos have only one or two colors, if you notice. And you have to think that they can be easily uh, used for multiple sources like social media, for your TV campaign, for print, or if you're doing a product that it has the ability to be placed on a particular product and it be instantly recognizable. So let's go ahead and show some of the slides. So these are some of the tips uh, for you when you're trying to create a logo. The very first one is to try to use basic geometric shapes, which helps you create a cleaner look. So all the circle, the square, the triangle, try to keep your elements as simple as possible. For example, think about the Nike check mark. That's a simple check mark and it's quickly identifiable, for example. Same thing with the Twitter logo right here on the left. It's just a little bird and it's blue, but it can be easily translated into black and white, or it can be enlarged and be used for multiple sources. Another tip is that you should try to create as many different versions of your design when you're starting out. So don't be pressured into thinking that you have to get it right on your very first try. Try to come up with as many different designs as possible. Play with the colors, the position of the objects in the design, try different versions. This is the perfect time at the beginning to just brainstorm and come up with many different ideas. Later on, you're gonna see, oh, I like the way that font looks, or that color doesn't really go that well. Let me try a different one. But at the very beginning, you wanna make sure that you draw as many different versions. And again, you can use a computer or you can actually do like a simple pencil and paper designs. A lot of graphic designers start just doing a quick little sketch on a piece of paper to get the ideas. And later on, they start refining that idea. Another tip, number 3, is to pick related colors and typography. So you want to make sure that it looks cohesive. You don't want to make the mistake of doing a font that is very hard to read or is in a completely different color that looks strange to your main logo design. And that is part of the number 4, to keep it simple. That's, I guess, the number 1 rule is to keep it as simple as possible, because again, you have to quickly identify the brand, or you want people to quickly recognize the company that you're trying to represent. And last but not least, it should be able to be used in multiple media. Again, you want to make sure that your logo can easily be read on an iPhone or a small screen, all the way to maybe like a giant size TV screen or a big poster or a magazine. So it has to be able to use anywhere. Right now, this slide, for example, is an evolution of a logo. And as you can see, this is the Apple logo. And the very first one from 1976 is the very first that was created. But as you can see, it's very busy and it's kind of hard to read. Later on, they simplified it to a little apple with a little bite taken off. And it has multiple colors like the rainbow. Then the next one they did is a simple black over white background, which is actually the same one they went back again currently. But in between those two, they went on and did a blue one with a gradient. You see how it goes from dark blue to light blue. And the other one is like a silver metallic color. So companies are always looking to see how they can refine and adapt their logos depending on the situation. And this is a final slide. 3 things that a logo should be. The number 1 is it has to be appropriate. So it has to be able to match the brand or the product that you're trying to cover, that trying to promote. Number 2, it has to be distinctive and memorable. So you have to be easy. When you see something, it's like, oh, you memorize how it looks. For example, this Levi's logo, it's just a simple white font over a red background and that little design. So when you see it in a store, you know, oh, they have Levi's jeans in there, you know, right away, you know, or you might see it on an advertisement in a magazine. So it's very easy to recognize. And again, number 3 is to keep it simple. All right, let me get out of the screen. All right. So let's get back to Vector.com, and like Jaden showed us, we have all of the little shapes right here on the left-hand side. So if you guys want to follow along, you're more than welcome. I'm going to create a little simple logo. I'm going to go to these 3 buttons right here on the left, and I'm going to pick the little heart shape. So I'm going to click on the heart, And you can just click on anywhere inside of your page. So when you click inside, you can see that it copied your heart shape. Now on your right, we have two colors. We have the background color or the fill color, and there's a border if you wanted to add a border. So I'm gonna change that color to a green because I'm gonna be doing a design for a logo for, let's say like an environmental agency that they wanna do conserve the trees or something like that. So I'm gonna do it like a little tree. So this is part of the tree, and you're gonna see how I'm gonna create that tree. So I'm gonna click on the heart shape now that I have it in green. And if you right click or control click in your pad, you see some options. There's duplicate, delete, lock object, and there's some great ones, but I'm gonna go into duplicate because I just wanna copy that same shape, and it puts it right next to it. I'm gonna move it a little bit to the side. And if you move with your cursor right here in the corner, you see this little curved arrow. That means you can rotate. So I'm going to click and rotate, and you can use the shift button. So press and hold the shift button while you're rotating. So that keeps it nice and proportional when you rotate. And I'm gonna move it right here. And if you see there's some blue lines at the top and in the center, that helps you guide in so that you're putting it right in there. So right next to the other one. Looks like we have some comments in the chat. Let's see. Oh, okay, sorry, it has to drop. So I'm gonna do the same thing with this right one. I'm gonna duplicate, again, right click and duplicate the shape. Now something happens when you create a shape. If you see these little buttons at the top, they give you several options. It flips the object horizontally, or you can flip it vertically. You can also send it to the back. That comes into play with the layers that Jaden was talking about, or you can send it all the way to the front. So I'm going to flip it because this is going to go on the other side. Click horizontal. I'm going to drag it right over here to this side. So you see, now I have those three shapes all together. So that's going to be the canopy of the tree, the little part, the top part of the tree. Now I'm going to use this little rounded rectangle. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to click and drag down over here. Oops, sorry, let me do it again. Click and drag all the way down, kind of about that way. And I'm gonna drop it over there. I can change the color. Let me pick like a green, brown, dark brown. And I'm gonna click and drag it over here. And if you see, it looks on top of the green part, which I kind of don't like that. So I'm gonna click on it again. And I'm gonna use this little button to send it all the way to the back. So you're gonna click it and it's gonna go all the way to the back. Now you see we have the little brown and the green stems over here. So that looks kind of nice. I can also use some text to create the name. I'm gonna click on the text and click over here in the center. And I'm gonna click the name Evergreen. I'm gonna type that in. And once you're done, you can click outside. You can drag it. And it gives you some options, as Jaden noted before. We can increase the size, make it a little bit bigger. Gonna move it, put it underneath. And you can also change the type of font that you're using. I'm gonna click where it says Open Sans and try a different color. Now, when you're coming up with your fonts and you're trying to pick a font, you have to think, for example, this will be a little bit hard to read if you're printing it on a small size. So you have to think about stuff like that. Make sure that it's legible no matter what medium. That looks kind of nice, evergreen. So I'm gonna move it over here. And it looks a little bit plain as well. So I'm gonna maybe add a little circle for the background. So I'm gonna pick the ellipse or circle and also click and drag. And again, use the shift button. So press and hold shift so that you can enlarge it, right? Make it right next to this. And I think I'm gonna pick a dark background. So I'm gonna go all the way back down here. And I'm gonna move it on top of the object. But oh, it looks like it covered it. So again, I wanna make sure that it's all the way to the back because I wanna make sure I see the tree up front. So I'm gonna click send to back. And as you can see, it's all the way there. Maybe center it using the guidelines. You can also use these guides right over here in the top right corner when you see snapping and grid. If you click on that, you have the ability to create the snapping function or the grid. I'm gonna click grid so that you can see. It allows you to align your objects nice and easy. It creates this little nice squared background, and then you can turn that on and off. Oops. Let's see if I can turn it off. None. Yeah. So that's a quick little logo. And like I said, when you're creating logos, one of the best ways to play around and try different things is try different versions. So I'm gonna click outside and drag this little marquee, a little square, right? Oh, sorry, doesn't look like it did it. And I'm gonna group them, and I'm gonna duplicate that object. So now it created another group. Now I can choose ungroup. So grouping means all of those little elements, let me actually click outside. All of these little elements, let me click ungroup, are individuals. Like the stem is one element, this little leaf is one element. So they're all individual, but when you group them, you can see you can put them all together so that it creates one solid shape. So I'm gonna go back to this one, and now I can try different things. Let's say that I didn't like that particular brown color. I can go back and click this thing and background color, and I can make it darker, I can make it lighter. I can even change it into a green color. So that looks different. I can even go into the font and try a different font color. Instead of a light green, I can make it a little bit darker. Now, the cool thing is you can also use this little eyedropper tool. So if you click on this, you can pick a different color anywhere on the screen. It can be black, for example, or if I pick a different color, you can use the eyedropper. If I wanted it to match this type of green, I can just click on that one and immediately copies that green color. All right. So that's how easy it is to create a logo. You can use any of those shapes. So this can be like a nice practice time for you guys. And you can do like a little logo for like if you're into video games or if you like animals, you can try doing like a little animal shape. So that's pretty much it for the logo creation portion. If you guys have any questions, make sure to type it into the chat and we'll be glad to answer those questions. And now I'm gonna throw it back to Marlon, who's gonna be talking about what we have in store for the next session next Friday. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed our presentation.
That's really cool. Very, very cool. You know, you guys are very lucky because you get a chance to come to these webinars and see, you know, hear from experts in their fields. All these folks are, you know, experts in graphic design and art and animation and music and things like that. I have a couple of questions I was writing down. What do you guys think about color? How important is color when it comes to like a logo? And even you guys who are here in the you know, the guests who are attending, think about it. Like, how important are colors when you think about, when you look at a logo, how does it affect you? Like, for example, the Apple logo or McDonald's or whatever.
Let's remember that, yeah, they're very, very important, Elizabeth. I'm sorry, my camera is frozen. They're very important because not only do they obviously convey some sort of emotional, you know, something, it brings up some sort of emotion within you and the person. That's why people use these colors. Like, for example, McDonald's, what are the colors they use? Yellow and red. Those colors are actually supposed to stimulate hunger. So that's the whole purpose. And if you notice in their inside, how they design the inside of their restaurants, it's actually designed so that people can move faster. You
Hector,
know,
can
so
you put those logos back up on the screen?
Sure, let me go ahead and.
Dinah, that's a really good point.
Also, to piggyback off of what Dinah was saying, colors do convey different moods, but sometimes the same color could convey different moods. Like, for example, the color blue. Sometimes you might think of blue as like a sad color, like somebody is sad or lonely or upset, but blue could also be the color of safety or technology. Like if you look at the Chase logo, like Chase Bank, like the color is blue because it's showing you that it's safety, that your money's safe with them and you can trust them. So same thing with the Android one that I'm looking at right now, that it's green. Green can either symbolize like life, like plants and nature, or it can symbolize envy or sickness or disgust. It depends on how it's being used.
Yeah.
Hmm. Just like the also colors play a big role in different countries. What one color means to this country, it completely means a different something else to the other country. Like for example, the color red. Here in the United States, we know red as to be love, it be associated with Valentine's Day, whereas the color red in China, it actually means victory, and it resembles a marriage. It's supposed to bring luck. So they're kind of different. So
Yeah, and I like what you're mentioning about red because, and I love the words that you guys are throwing around because, you know, the colors make you feel a certain way or make you think a certain way, and you can even look it up. Like there's a whole color theory that has to do with emotions that you can look up if you Google it. And like for example, you'll notice that many logos have red, and red
mhm.
is supposed to stimulate like power, strength. So you'll see
Yeah.
when you see a lot of red logos, that's what they're. You'll see what companies are associated with that, and then like Jaden was saying, you know, like green, blue is supposed to, you know, kind of simulate comfort and being safe, you know, and even, you know, a couple of the spaces that I used to manage, like the technology spaces for teenagers, we used to have this thing where the color selection that we would paint the walls inside was purple. And it's not like a really bright purple, but sort of like a nice, you know, nice even purple, kind of moderate purple, because purple is supposed to make you feel calm and warm and safe as well.
Mhm.
So, you know, think about that.
Yeah, and also if you notice, flags, the our national flags, they have different colors for different reasons. Let's take for example the Japanese flag. The Japanese flag, you have crimson red in the center. That the methodological, ugh, I can't say it. The
Mythological.
significance, yes, mythological significance of the country, it pretty much means like it's the sun. It represents like a prosperous future for Japan. Whereas like the white color background, that symbolizes purity and honesty and integrity of the Japanese people. So that's the whole concept behind color theory.
Yeah. So yeah, if you, as you guys are like creating your graphics or posts or even turning in projects for school, don't just throw anything together. Think about it. Also, I want to put on the table, what about what fonts that you use? How important
Hmm.
is that? You know, because I'm taking a class right now and the teacher went through this whole thing. We took a whole class on social media, and a lot of people, you'll see they'll put a flyer together or a poster or a paper they're turning into school, and they'll use different fonts. One paragraph is this font, and then the title is another font, and then the writing on the bottom is a different font. And can anybody tell me what does that do to you if you're seeing multiple different fonts in one document? I'm interested to see if any of the guests have anything to say about that.
Can I
You
share
got,
something with you guys real quick?
sure.
Sure.
Something I want to show you.
Yeah,
Okay, so just to show you guys the importance of fonts.
very
So
important.
let's take a look at this picture right here, right? This font is
That's
very
great.
different to this font.
Oh my
That's
god.
funny.
So
Yeah,
different fonts can also convey different emotions as well. This one's all curly, so it's kind of cute and lovey-dovey, but then this one's like terrifying. It's like horror.
yeah,
It's like
and
a
then also
weapon
Yeah,
on the wall.
look at the color as well. Like the one
yeah,
on the
Yeah,
top with that color and that font is nice and lovey, but the one on the bottom with the same color but a different font, totally
it's like
different message.
intimidating.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's the same exact words too, but the
yep,
tone comes off completely
exactly.
different just because of the font.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's something to keep
speaking
in
of
mind.
fonts, I know there's graphic designers that solely focus on creating different fonts, and they actually like make money off of that because it's difficult to nowadays like find fonts that are different. Because if you notice like on Illustrator, or even if you just do like Word, you have very basic fonts that you could use, and there's so much more to go into fonts. Like there's so many different ones. And so there's specific people that actually do. There is free resources for free fonts. And some of these, yep, def.com, yes, that's definitely one of the places I use when I want to get a different font. But you yourself can actually, if you start learning about typography, you'll start learning more about the difference between fonts and what they are. Um, so yes, that's definitely, yes, the font. There's some other ones that you could definitely use.
I never heard of that, defont.com. So how many
Yeah.
of you guys are already doing like graphic design? I know that some people, I think it may have been Elizabeth, was saying that they already are starting to become an entrepreneur and doing different business stuff. So that's this stuff that we're teaching you, well, not me, but that they're teaching you is plays a big role in the success of your company, or even the success as a student in the type of papers that you turn in and the type of projects. So how many of you guys have been playing already with, like, for example, you know, Photoshop or Illustrator, or what are some other ones? You know, even
Vector is the one that we use today, and there's another one that's called Inkscape that is also free. That one you do have to download, but you can use on a PC, a Windows PC, or on a Mac. That's very good, and it's free, like I said. So, and you can even do illustrations using vectors, not just logos and stuff, but you can do some really nice illustrations. So if you're more into art and you want to create posters, or like I mentioned before, like the covers for a video game or something like that, if you're into that kind of look, um, definitely practice with all of these applications. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. You may be saying, well, you know, I'm not going into graphic design for a career, or I'm not going into movie production, or I'm not going into this. But let me tell you, and these guys, the lady here, and the two guys who are on our staff can tell you, the more tools that you have that you're able to pull out of your tool belt and be able to use in your future, let me tell you, the better for you. If you can only do one thing and you're only good at one thing, that's good. You know, it's good to be an expert in one thing, but the more resources that you're able to pull out of your tool belt and you use is going to make you very successful. Yeah. Okay. So you guys are very quiet today.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate everybody coming. This has been a really good workshop, and I hope that you guys got something out of it today. So next week we're doing.
That's right.
I can't believe it's not Photoshop.
We can't
Yes.
believe it's not Photoshop.
I love that name. I can't
You
believe
guys,
it's not Photoshop. Oh my god.
you guys know where it comes from, right? Type it in the chat. I don't know if
These
any
are
of you.
kids. They don't know
I
about
know
that.
these
I
They're youngsters. They
people
don't
don't
know.
know. I'm sure the parents do know. They're like, oh yeah, it's related to butter. But yes, so next Friday, we're gonna see you guys here, and we're gonna learn about some Photoshop options that are free online. So I expect you all to come back and bring a friend, show your parents, make sure that you tell everybody that you can. Okay?
Yeah, and try to show us what you can do with this program. You can do a simple card and send it down to us. You can download a picture. You can create a JPEG or a PNG and send it down to us through our
Mhm.
Instagram, because we'd love to see what you guys can do with these programs. Any kind of art, we'd love to see what you guys can do. Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Definitely.
for sure.
And like we were saying, we're going to be presenting at the Maker Faire Miami. I'm putting in the chat again. That's coming up in August, in the third week of August, I think, actually. So, but start checking that out. It's going to be really cool. Oh, look, some Elizabeth got it.
They figured it
Did
out.
you have help, Elizabeth? Did your mom tell you that?
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
Yeah, parents will know. That's
But
funny.
yeah,
My
we're gonna be.
mom,
She's
yes.
like, yes, my mom told me that because I'm too young. What do they call this generation? This is Generation Alpha. So these are.
No, Z. Is
Oh,
it
this is
Z,
Gen?
Gen Z.
yeah,
Yeah.
Z.
Well,
Oh wait, no,
we call them the monster slayers because you
No.
guys are out there like slaying the monsters and really leading. So we appreciate what the young people are doing. But yeah, so we're going to be coming up at Maker Faire Miami. So start checking that out. Go ahead and go to the website and register because Maker Faire Miami is really cool. It's like, you know, maybe hundreds of different presenters who are going to be presenting all kinds of arts and crafts and engineering and robotics and STEAM and just a lot. It's too much for me to even try to mention in one session here. But check it out, and you'll also be able to visit us and listen to us present a class on August 15th at 10 to 11 a.m. But yeah, if you look at it, you'll definitely enjoy what you get to see.
yeah,
So,
we'll definitely have it posted on social media so you guys don't forget.
Steph.
We'll remind you. Most def in the flesh. Okay.
Well, thanks everybody. We appreciate you all coming here again, and we look forward to seeing you next week for our class on not Photoshop but free Photoshop resources. And then we're gearing up for August where we're going to be doing some stuff. I think more like in the arts and maybe even animation type vein. All right. So tell your friends, tell your family, and we hope to see you back here again. What was that,
yes.
Dinah?
I said I was gonna just thank everybody. Noah, Elizabeth, Mother Love, Nate, Grace,
know, right?
Zaria, Maggie. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Take
good
care.
weekend.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.